Well, hello everybody. I want to do this live up here in Fort McMurray. There's been a lot of wildfires getting close to the region, major evacs of the town, I guess, today. And I'm quite a bit north of that. No effect yet, but it's kind of been stressful on site with a lot of folks and juggling supervision and those who are in town, of course. So, thoughts for them tonight and over the coming days and weeks. I've been there up here twice for these scenarios, and they're pretty tough. But that aside, I see people are logging on, starting to now. So I want to do this. It's on basically Robert F. Kennedy, who's running for president of the United States under Democrat Libertarian version. Libertarian Party in USA is literally divided in half. There's the Republican rule of law side, Libertarian, and that one is huge for me. Then there's the one I don't subscribe to, which is the Robert F. Kennedy style, open borders, no private property rights, yada, yada, yada. Very liberal. It's more of a Canadian version, so I don't like that. This is an extreme Democrat version in the US. Canada, it's different, which is what I want to get into here tonight. Kyle Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's brother, why I bring up Robert F. Kennedy that's running for president of the United States. Kyle Trudeau is one of his major rally guys and organizers and fundraiser persons. Justin's brother is working hard with Robert F. Kennedy's crew. In fact, I had a chance to speak with Robert F. Kennedy through the University of Texas. Of course, I didn't care to. I mean, I watched the debate and I showed that to a lot of my friends and followers, but I really didn't have any interest in Robert F. Kennedy or supporting him. It doesn't fly with me. I've had enough of Justin Trudeau. And all Canadian politicians, in fact, they have more in common on that side of the aisle than anything with the Republicans. Not even close, which is the bread and butter of this. And I have to myth bust everything Kyle was saying to Tucker Carlson in the interview. There was some major misinformations, inaccuracies, and basically lies being sold by wealthier Canadians of what they think but isn't written in law. And in fact, Americans understand this. Tucker Carlson understands this very well. He's Harvard graduated. Americans in general have a much stronger civics minded relationship with their country, i.e., that they understand their Constitution, they know the gists of it, they definitely know all their amendments. And Canadians, for a large swath majority, have never even read their Constitution. They always talk about one, and I repeat, only one amendment, 1982, and that's the Charter. And unfortunately, for the age-old system of charters since the Magna Carta, the first charter, who makes the king follow it? And Canada, true to form, since the Magna Carta and the story of Robin Hood, which is a real story of a lord who had to rebel against the king who didn't live up to the charter. Yeah, everyone went and fought for the king, gave up their lives and everything else, and then the king backed out of the entire Magna Carta, and like clockwork, every generation, different king, different monarch, they take it away, they manipulate, they cheat, lie, all of it. And Canada is no exception, folks. In our highest laws, petitions, you've seen them. I've seen Michelle Rempel do them out of Calgary. I'm an Albertan. I used to support her actually very greatly in my earlier years. I got lots of calls over the years, even at work, in a van with a crew of guys, and they're listening to Michelle Rempel, and they know it's her. and going through ideas and other things. And it just got to a point with me, like the Conservatives in Alberta, I just gave up and I went Alberta independence. Now I teach constitutionalism and how to transform Canada, how to fix Canada for all of these major violations of us, the subjects defined, all Canadians. And sadly, all the First Peoples who are legally registered and understood in legal speak by the politicians as savages. Again, these are not my words. These are not my definitions. I certainly didn't write any of the laws of Canada. I was born in 1978, everybody. Our last major amendment to the Constitution was 1982. Now, I've never been a Supreme Court justice. I've never gone that route of amendments, and there are several. We've had several since 1982 through the Supreme Court of Canada that I teach is basically King's Court, like every single monarchy before it, including the first written charter that I go through, Magna Carta. We're going back over 800 years, folks. All the same con job, no matter which company or country comes out in a constitutional monarchy and tries to sell these lies to the people. Now, I don't want to stray off too much, but I have to give that basis and basics because it's important. I've tagged Tucker Carlson. I've tagged Robert F. Kennedy because Kyle Trudeau will hear from that. And Robert's already backed out of a bunch of unconstitutional things he's said already. And there it is. There goes the rule of law, which I can't get behind, because if the politicians can't be bothered with rule of law, they're basically no better than Canadians. You might as well slap a crown on your head and tell all Americans that you want to make America subjects again, which they got rid of in the War of Independence. And they fight every other generation, as many presidents have warned that any generation can get into it. So, what is it that Canada's been selling you a bag of lies about? Well, petitions. So, going back now, MPs and provincially in federalism, MLAs, the provincial equivalent of a parliamentarian. In the U.S., you have House, Congress, state level, and at the federal level, all 52 states have versions of this, or a working Senate versions of this, all elected, not appointed. There's no whip. There's no such thing as a whip where everybody has to vote the same. As you see, if you haven't seen in American politics, they get into groups, voting blocks, which is great. And the biggest thing is that petitions in the United States are nothing like Canada. So Americans have to, take a step back from what Kyle Trudeau said. Any two Americans, generally, I can take you through all 50 states of the United States. They may change the narrative, they may change the court structure, or even the type of court you go in, but generally speaking, every 50 state of the 50 states, every single state has petitions that can be enacted by the citizens, brought to citizen courts, where the upper judiciary has to process it if enough signatures are made. And of course, they have those petitions in the United States at state level, and there's even versions in the federal level initiated by people. And yes, congressmen or senators can bring it forward and present it, especially if there's a lot of signatures. Now in Canada, that doesn't work at all like that. For one, there is no citizen in Canada. Yes, we have a Citizenship Act, but anyone who's ever come here that's well-versed in English, who goes through it, will tell you, oh my God, I went through the Citizenship Act, and there it is. I had to swear an allegiance and become a subject again. When you look at the definition of a subject in the United States under Webster's, that's a slave. The U.S. doesn't do that to any of their people, not their American Indians that they've classed as an equal citizen with the same state powers as the 50 states, 155 of them. They even have their own federal ministry. Not the same in Canada. Canada, non-human beings don't get the division of powers in a real federalism. It's absolute humanity disgusting by this elite first class. Now, petitions. There are no citizen petitions. And when you get into municipal level, as I can give you an example of a fella who's running through Calgary, the provincial crown set the bar so high that the city is only 1.5 million people, and he's told he has to get 1 million signatures over the age of 18. Newsflash, less than 750,000 people are over the age of 18. See the con job here? So when you have Canadian relatives of politicians or high society types telling Americans that citizens could do these things, or that they got to go through an MP or an MLA, and that a lot of they won't follow it through, it's that the political parties in Canada in power, in a majority, don't have to follow any petitions. There is no constitutional power or legislative or parliamentary law that takes away from the power of the executive. Meaning, in Canada, the Prime Minister in power, with the Governor General of Canada, does not have to follow any petitions. Even if you did get your signatures, there is nothing you can get pushed through if they don't want to. And if the opposition doesn't have enough seats to hold them to the fire, they don't have to follow it. We are exactly like every socialist, fascist country before us because we're the first codified design. Now, referendums. I'm going to tell you about 1982 and just what happened with referendums. You see, there's a country called South Africa in 1993 that went through apartheid, and there was no way Canada was ever going to let the United Nations Security Council, meaning the greatness of USA and we the people and all these powers of the people, to enact over their politicians, to sidestep them and even access the judiciary to block them or get rid of them when they're really crummy and bad and they're indictable, in fact. Okay, in Canada, you can't do that. For one, all the police in Canada, all the police, doesn't matter what police force you find, folks. So when provinces say they're going to build a police force, and don't worry, they're not going to fall for it. Sorry, that's not how it works. They absolutely follow and are sworn to the crown. And their first mandate is Prime Minister, Governor General, and you can keep going down through your constitutional acts of Canada. They're written out in order. You and I aren't there. So anyone telling you that, I'd like you to show me where we're enacted in the Constitution, because we're not. And anyone telling you that is a phony, a liar, a misinformation, disinformation creator, because we're not there. All of the justice system is oath-bound and sworn at our highest levels to absolutely the crown. And that starts with Governor General of Canada, who is appointed by Prime Minister and sworn to Prime Minister. So it's super powerful autocratic power. Russia's nothing compared to us that way. When they start talking about Vladimir Putin, it's like, maybe you best start looking at Canada, because Canada's the oldest and worst model. In fact, the first model, and it's in monarchical. So they never follow anything. Referendums have been made so cockamamie because of the South Africa destruction of apartheid, folks, that Canada turned around and said, okay, we're going to get our King's Court, Supreme Court of Canada, to write an opinion, and then the government made it law to make it look like, well, it's rule of law and the government's going to follow the Supreme Court. No, the Governor General picked up the phone and ordered the Supreme Court to write this the way the politicians in power at the time wanted it to be done. And they made it impossible to have a real referendum of any substance for any kind of democratic powers at all for any of the people. Because again, we're subjects or we're savages. in the more than 95 percentile. That's Canada. It's literally less than 0.001%, 0.002%, I'm sorry, to be exact, that's in that political class codified. And then you have all the police, all the lawyers, all the justices who fall in line under that. They're oath sworn to it. And in Canada, a referendum's nearly impossible, the major referendums of the national kind, because of this, the formula of it. You need to have, of the provinces, 7 provinces voted forward. Then you have to have the appointed Senate that's sworn to the executive prime minister, whomever that is, conservative, liberal, if NDP got there, or Green, or Bloc. We could go on and on. All the parties. It won't matter, folks. And this is for Americans, Tucker Carlson. It won't matter, because that Senate, 2/3, will do whatever the executive says, because they're not a legislative branch. This is not the USA. They are not voted in. They don't campaign. They're appointed by the executive. They're crowned, sworn to the Governor General through the executive. So you've lost your entire upper house. That is all executive, not legislative or parliamentary. It's absolutely executive power, as is your Supreme Court and all superior courts of every province. So, referendum is going to lose just because of Senate and House. They're all whipped, sworn to allegiance to the party leader. Whomever's in power, if they want the referendum because it benefits them, then it'll happen. What if they don't want it? You're not going to get it. And all the crown premiers have lieutenant governors, just like the states. Lieutenant governor, lieutenant governor, except for ours are crown. Who appoints them? The Governor General of Canada on advice from the Prime Minister. There it goes. So all premiers get in line and they get wealthy too. There is zero accountability in Canada. There is none. The politicians do whatever they want for their term. And the only rights Canadians have, which are diminishing already, is to run for office or vote in an election. And now to run an office, they've already cut out so many people at the federal level. Canadians have no idea. It's written in your highest laws. It's there for you. You can go through all of it. It's in the Constitutional Acts of Canada if you take the time. Nothing said was really true because it's not even possible. The referendum formula is made so impossible that it will only happen if all the Crown accepts it. And they never will. Not if it's against their power, their authority, their accountability. They'll never do it. No power to the people. There is no power to the people in any codified means in anything in Canada. Zero, zilch, never has been, never will be. Any politician claiming this or saying they're going to do these petitions or they're going to honor or host referendums, they're lying to all of you. And they always have. And they'll make a show. They'll even make a show of the Supreme Court, but it always comes up with these weird cockamamie decisions that don't follow precedent. Now, Americans know what precedent is. Americans know what common law is. And they even have natural law for all their citizens because they're real citizens. They know when a decision's made that violates precedent, which means it's a violation of the Constitution because common law means the law of precedent. Judges must rule on things or come up with opinions that have a basis in precedent in the system. So when it's all of a sudden brand new, out of left field or out of right field or makes no sense, that means the executive ordered it because they appointed all the justices. That's how it works. That's how it works in every province and every territory. So when you exhaust your resources going to the highest court at the provincial level, or I'll go to the Supreme Court of Canada, all you're doing is going to the Prime Minister in power, ultimately at the end of the day, which means they decide if you'll even be heard. They'll decide even if you're heard, will they give a remedy? they'll decide if even they will give a judgment in your favor. That is the sad, sick, disgusting state of Canada. And people seem to not know this. I can tell you all today, I had a tremendous morning, actually. I woke up to a tremendous morning out of the blue. Massive academic works, academics reaching out to me. I got to share. These are the greatest minds. So Tucker Carlson, Robert F. Kennedy should already know because I was in the event he was at in Texas. And why is a guy like me, this is my camp room at CNRL, I'm a welder by trade. I got into political science through real life action with Alberta independence. I caught the eye of many academics and my life has exploded. There's a list of 11 of America's top legal academics, highest published, living today. And I know all of them. I interact with all of them at a personal level. I just got a big shout out on Twitter from one. And I mean, it's not to float my boat or why would these people have anything to do with me? Why would a guy like Mark Seidel fly all the way out from the U.S. to Edmonton, Alberta to meet me? And then this just blew up because it's like, who's this guy? How did he do all these things? How does he figure this out? How does he follow? Like, who helped him? And it's like, no, we just work at it. We follow the system, cross our T's, dot our I's, go through it as it really is. Learn the world as it really is. And I do that every day in my life as much as I can. I know the world, and the more of it I'm learning and the stronger I get that way, the more I see the evil of my country and I see it truly for what it is, a big fat con job. The biggest fear today for me is the idea of USA returning their citizens to subjects. I'm terrified of that with Joe Biden. I see that with Robert F. Kennedy. Just watching the Justin Trudeau brother Kyle roll out what he said really upset me because it's cockamamie, it's hogwash, it's not true. I'm getting flagged now from our Canadian politicians, getting posts removed on inflation. When I provide the legal data, I've got real economics groups, societies, high ranking, highly published, been doing awesome for me, and I've been so excited about that. But to watch my posts get tore down when a basic truth, and I'm going to hit this before I close this out, how bad it is. So I get a post flagged in January on Canadian inflation. In Canada, we have 3 debt to GDP ratios, just like the United States. We have public, which is your government's debt. There's a federal, a provincial, a municipal through provincial, but it's public debt. And you can add all those together, and they don't even do that. They just show you the federal. There's a provincial, there's a municipal in your regions. So that's public debt of the politicians upon all of you. Then there's the corporate debt to GDP ratio, and then there's household debt to GDP ratio. Now, USA and Canada have differences. We have different laws and the different banking institutions and the way we work through the Bank of Canada, through the Crown. And I hate that I have to even argue this, and I'm called misinformation or disinformation. Folks, the laws of Canada, the Banking Act, our system of our chartered banks, we can go through the financial acts, all of them. And there's 3 majors here. Because there's the Bank of Canada, then there's the Banking Act, and there's another one in financial law too. These 3 acts have gone through tremendously. So how it works in Canada, when corporates go so high and their debt to GDP ratio propelled way over $2 trillion, and I published that this is inflationary, and at the end of the day, like you all know in Harper Era, if you don't know, he borrowed $380 billion, doubled down tremendously on Canada's debt. Now Trudeau's tripled that already in 9 years, right? But Harper did it too, and he doubled every prime minister before him. Whopping inflationary that we're feeling now to this day. Corporate debt, when corporations go bankrupt or consumer debt proposal, that goes ultimately onto the public debt. That's all of ours. Whether we had the business or had any enjoyment of assets, travel, or any of it, at the end of the day, it goes to us, the subjects. And I'm sorry for Facebook and sorry for Americans, but that's our truth here. It's backed up in law, our laws, our system, and backed up in our Constitution too. Same with all household debts. So when people have $1 million and millions of credit and then they lose it all, that goes to everybody equally, all of us subjects and us, the taxpayers, and those who are indebted to it. It all ends up public debt. That's how the system in Canada works. Subjects defined, savages defined. Again, these are not my words. They're easily found. It's not misinformation, disinformation. We know who the major taxpayers are. I just had a beautiful analysis after 3 years of begging the visual capitalist. And I think I'm really starting to piss the politicians off because it's like my credibility's growing, my world circle's growing. And like I said, when you have 11 of the top best of the best American academics at your disposal, that says something. I'm sorry, but that says something. And, this is how it comes back when you look at the post. It's like everything in that post is 100% deadly accurate. Show me a dispute or file some kind of dispute. Oh no, you're abusing the platform. And I'm getting this on Twitter too. And it's like, look at my followers and who I'm following. And it's not a whole lot, but look at some of these individuals. Look at them and go look them up on Google. Why would they have anything to do with me? Look, I'm at Senile Camp. I'm a tradesman. Why would they have anything to do with me? Because I'm some kind of super con artist or something? No, it's because I do real works and I publish a lot of stuff. I've got people in Spain, Italy, all over Europe. It's incredible. Some major people, man. And major political figures who've done major things in just the last few years, like we did in 2019. There was Catalan in Spain in 2018, the real professor, but the Americans is huge, huge. A major notch in my belt, a blessed life for somebody in my class in Canada. And I know Americans often say, well, you're letting them abuse you because you accept that. And it's like, that's what they define me as, man. Like, it's kind of like what the Black Americans went through in segregation, right? It's forced upon you, and that is what Canada is. And Americans need to understand that. We're not citizens. We are the opposite of you. We're everything you fought against in the War of Independence going back to 1776. Everything you fought against is what we are. We're that line in the sand, 49th parallel, largely, that divides us. We've always been that way. I made major breakthroughs in Chicago with literally the third largest published academic legal scholar, historical scholar in the U.S. And we're exchanging on Twitter, like just a fabulous day. And I'm affecting them. They're looking at this going, he's right. Not on everything, like anything, but on a lot of what they're working on, it's like, wow, I've moved that needle. That's incredible. Incredible. What's wrong is Canada at an epic scale, everybody. I never lie. I don't have to. Again, just look at the people I'm interacting with. Why would they have anything to do with me? It was an incredible morning, and then all of a sudden there's this incredible censorship placed upon me. And it's real, credible, verifiable. Like, these are your numbers, assholes. This is your Stats Canada. This is your actions, your legislation. These are your laws. This is the Constitution of Canada. Have I missed something here? So if all of it's true and this is coming upon us, I don't blame Facebook. They operate here according to the laws and the new legislations being put in, and it keeps getting worse. Pierre's not going to change anything. I'm going to tell everybody something right now. I'm in Alberta with Danielle Smith. Wild Rose. I was there for the floor crossing. I was there when she went completely ballistic before the floor crossing, told us all off in southern Alberta. I'm sitting there, shut down dirty, back of the room. I'm with Corey Morgan, the first separatist. Him and his wife were standing there. I'm in dirty clothes, a few feet away. Back of the room with them, we're watching her come in and go nuts. Albertans have no idea. Right now, everything she said was evil about Rachel Notley and all the things put in by Jason Kenney evil in COVID-19. She hasn't repealed any of it. Laws and autocracy by these great academics, not just these 11 Americans, even though it's great that they've seen it and written about it, is the fact that all of the world academia looking at this stuff. And it was funny how humiliating it was to see, like, personal gratification for a justice in Canada to try and sell a whole class a bunch of BS, and I got to be a part of that, and it's my international law class, and then she was getting told off. And they think they're fooling people, like all these South American students in Central America and Mexico. They think, oh, those dumb Latinos, they don't know nothing, we're suckering them. But yet they know all the BS. And they watched her roll through it, and on conventions and just epic proportion lies. And it's beautiful to be a part of that. You know, I'm not a lawyer and going through it, and then to see that lie. And that they think they're fooling people. And what she doesn't know is I just did with that class so many countries going through all the corruption and then going through the lies that they're being sold, they've caught. And here it is, Canada in its self-superiority, some justice thinking that she's pulling the wool over these people's eyes. And they're way more studied than we are here in Canada. And it's embarrassing. You know, and I'm learning. And it's terrific, it's epic, it's awesome. But I'm fearful for USA. I'm scared that these things that were said in the past by Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, we can go on with several presidents since those periods, but those epic speeches on these kinds of things where they're, any generation can ruin America, and we're living through it. And Canada is so far beyond it. So far, and Americans have no clue. Tucker really doesn't have a real truth here, and I'd love to be a part of that. I'd love to, at least if not me, and it doesn't suit, at least these other academics, at least those. I have Canada's two best that have USA scooped up. I know Rand Herschel, Richard Albert would go through this stuff about petitions and referendums, the lack of provincial constitutions, so much. I mean, Rand in Texas gave me a big flying hug when I went there. One academic, of course, out of the Upper Canada, split fast on that week. She was there a day and then split. Couldn't stand her stomach being in a room with me. But I think it was the idea of having to deal. What she doesn't get, or any academics in Canada don't get, is the world knows you're corrupt and full of crap. They know. I'm in a class right now. We got to see your BS, and you were called out on it, and it was awesome to see. But again, it's that superiority mind of that first class to look down on everybody and think everybody's so stupid. Africans are so smart. When you break down those 52 countries coming, right, to make Africa, they're getting there. As they're in their Pan-Africa or African Union, they're getting there. So smart, so knowledgeable. They see the baloney, and Canada takes for granted that because it has Canadian subjects suckered, and they bring in so many immigrants with the language barrier. And yes, those first gens will be tricked by the government, even though they're living the reality of the costs. They'll be tricked. But their kids won't be. But it's a generation lost. It's not their fault. It's all subjugation. But I hope this goes well. I hope so many of you share. I should mention it was for Ken Maurice. Ken Maurice brought this to me, and I've been very busy, 12s and everything else. I wanted to do this tonight to hit it because I know it was important to a lot of friends and followers. But it was Ken Maurice that really segregated the portion that I had to watch to see it. And it's very important to all of us those searching for real democracy, real accountability, real sovereignty. Again, so much epic works today that I got. Tremendous morning just to be kicked around, of course, on the platform by my corrupt government. Nobody else. We can blame Facebook, we can blame Twitter, but they operate in Canada under Canada's laws, just like all over the world. They'll put in the government censorships that they're required to outside of the United States. They will, or they don't get that market access. That's how it works. And sadly, that's how it works for Canada. Americans share news. I go on, I have several Americans, but I go on their Facebook and it's all content can't be displayed all the way through. And I'm just like, wonder what that's about, right? And you can see it was well liked, but I can't even view it. They don't even know, right? It's, people don't know because they don't live it, but we do. And Canadians, we're so far gone at this point, and I don't see Pierre changing it. Daniel Smith's prime example didn't change a thing. All these things these academics have all highlighted and written about, none of them have been changed or removed, meaning she's kept all those superpowers and she's actually expanding them in the name of emergency, like these wildfires. Oh, we get 6 more months of the election. We get this power, that power. We're going to be autocratic over municipalities, meaning all of you. Can you imagine the province determining how much more property tax you got to pay? Canadians have no idea. Americans have no idea that we're just so vastly overtaxed compared to you. It's unbelievable. Russia's lower than America now. The Russian Federation, very low taxed. Canada's like massively more taxed than Russia. Then America, massively more. And China, we are a third larger near than China now today, 1/3 higher than China. Think about that. 1/3 higher than communist China. Scary, unbelievable, but truthful. And these are realities people need to know. You're in an autocratic regime, socialist and fascist. Just read the Constitutional Acts of Canada. Understand this socialism. You want to get the best education on socialism? America isn't very socialist. They're on a mixed social economy, right? But they're not on the major spectrum of socialism because they didn't live it. They lived it, again, prior to 1776, 250 plus years removed. So if you want to know socialism in major detail and all the definitions and find out where you are on that scale, Russia Lexa Logos. Massive, massive on socialism and all the different kinds. And that's your politicians. The benefits of socialism, you get all the costs. They are fascists because they are superior human beings. They think they're better. They're codified better. They're codified as a divine first class, right in our Constitution. Don't have to be accountable. Justice works for them. Police work for them. Serve and protect is America. All police in Canada serve the crown from top down. Never once are any of you met ever there. You lose your ID in the United States, you have to go to your kin. You got your parents or brothers and sisters, and they got ID showing your parents on a birth certificate, and they're all going to vouch for you. That's how you get your ID replaced in the United States of America. In Canada, you need an MP, you need a federal politician elected, or a provincial MLA, or for Quebec an MNA, or a justice of the peace, meaning the judiciary local, to the crown. That's how you get your ID verified. You pay a lot of money. That's how it works in Canada. You're not even at the level as an average subject to even have your kin. Even if you had your parents who got a birth certificate that shows their names and your name and you want to get IDs, that no. You need replacement IDs. You go to the politician, the divine crown, or the local justice. That's it. That's all there is in Canada. As sad as that is, any registries will do that to you. This is my video. There's a lot of key truth here that anyone can look at. Referendums are a scam in Canada. All petitions are a scam. Again, just like 1776, who makes the king, or in our case, the prime minister, who appoints their crown king, because they are the king? It's an illusion of democracy, a total autocratic regime built on socialism and fascism. They get all the perks of all that. You get all the abuse and all the bills as a subject. America had a war of independence over it. Russia had a war of independence over it. Never again. That was World War II. Monarchies had to make a deal. France made a deal. UK made a deal. Joe Biden said, don't worry about that. We're going to do your Crown Green New Deal. We're going to make America subjects again. He started in 2021. First executive power he enacted, completely against everything that is the root, heart, and soul of the American people. And it is in the highest laws of the land. Think about that. He violated the highest laws of the land, literally, first major executive power he enacted, undid a pile of American history since World War II. Sick, sad, depraved. Don't trust Canada. Learn Canada as it really is. Read the Constitutional Acts of Canada Consolidated, Lewis and Holes, start to finish. Everything old, it's all consolidated. What's still there from 1867 and all amendments along the way, including 1982? It's all one document that you can read. They try to trick you. America teaches you how to do constitutions and understand them. They give a basic of civics for all the people. Why do Canadians not have that? How come Canadians don't know they have 11 amendments? How come Canadians have never read the full textual Constitutional Acts Consolidated? Yes, imposed. A lot of people don't like that. Everything we have is imposed. Yes, we do have provincial constitutions imposed. In those amendments, every single province has one. They're called Executive Powers Act, or versional names of it. There's a couple provinces, Quebec and Ontario, with a varying degree of names there, and they have some extended powers. Why? Upper, Lower Canada. Always been that way. Everybody else gets less powers. There's never been equality of the person in Canada. There's not even sovereignty for the people of Canada. Never mind, that's been all removed from the First Peoples. This is my video. It's a tremendous share. The more shares we get, hey, maybe Tucker Carlson's going to watch it. Maybe I could go to some academics, get an invite there and say, hey, I get it. I'm some greasy guy from Canada. No problem. I've got people you can talk to. Let's see that. Let's get a real fresh perspective on this. Something credible, not some scumbag brother of the Prime Minister with a shady past, a shady present. And that's the reality. Like I said, in America, the Libertarian Party is two halves. And one falls on the Democrat line, the other falls on the rule of law line. And I like the rule of law line. I like the American Constitution. That's my video. Share, share, share. Tremendous information. Bye now.